I was checking a cargo manifest when the alert came through. Not the civil weather tone, not the quarterly seismic advisory that Solen Reach runs every autumn, when the old fault signatures flex beneath the city's roots. This was the long-range tone. I had heard it in drills twice in my career. The pitch sits in a register, designed to be impossible to ignore, and impossible to mistake for anything else. And it went through my chest like a physical thing, even 40 stories above the freight floor. I set the manifest tablet on the railing and looked up. From the Caulfield Terminal's south platform, you can see most of the city's upper reach, the tiered residential stacks climbing past the cloud base, the transit arches linking the four main spires, and beyond them, if the air is clear, the faint pale line of the Tesserine grid, where the planetary sensor lattice breaks the horizon. The air was clear that morning. I could see all of it. The voice on the Civil Alert channel was calm and institutional, the way every voice in Solen Reach becomes when the protocols take over. Covenant profile signature detected at high atmospheric entry. Solhari processional fleet. 75,000 years since last registered contact. All civilian platforms hold position and await instruction. I remember the pause I took. Not fear, or not exactly fear, more the sensation of hearing a word you have only ever read in a textbook, spoken aloud for the first time, and realizing it was always meant to be spoken. The Solhari Covenant. I learned about it in school, the way everyone in the Reach learns about it, as a unit in the Deep History module, illustrated with stone-rubbing reproductions, and paired with a short essay assignment. 75,000 years ago, before humanity had agriculture, before we had writing, an alien civilization visited Earth, surveyed the surface, and carved a declaration into a basalt ridge on what is now the northern Solen Shelf. The declaration was simple: this ground is sacred to the Solhari ascendancy. We will return when the celestial processional completes its arc, and we will reclaim what is ours. They left. They expected to come back to animals. The Covenant Stone was found 11,000 years ago by a geological survey team, cutting a transit corridor through the shelf. It was translated within a century. And from that point forward, for 11,000 years, Earth prepared. Not in a frenzy, not with the desperation of a species that had just learned it was being watched. With patience, with the steady, unbroken institutional discipline that Solen Reach, and every city like it, was built to embody. The Tesserine grid was designed to detect a Solhari drive signature at a range of 4 light-years. The Aven line, the orbital defense constellation that I could see as a string of bright points above the eastern spire, was positioned to contain a fleet of the exact composition described in the Covenant Stone's navigational addendum. 11,000 years of preparation for a single morning. And now it was that morning, and I was holding a cargo manifest and watching the sky. The first ships broke atmosphere, 18 minutes after the alert. I saw them as bright points resolving into shapes, elongated, ceremonial, covered in what looked like gold alloy hull plating that caught the sun in long vertical flares. They were beautiful, in a way I had not expected, ornate. The prow of the lead vessel curved upward into a tapered spire that reminded me of a cathedral I had seen in a history archive. They were warships, I knew that from the briefings, but they had been designed to look like temples. There were 41 of them. The Civil Alert channel confirmed the count as they descended in a broad processional formation, each vessel separated by a precise interval, the spacing itself a ritual. They were broadcasting on an open channel, a low harmonic tone followed by a spoken declaration in a language that Earth's systems translated in real time. The words appeared on my tablet without my asking. We are the Solhari ascendancy. The processional is complete. We return to sacred ground as promised. Prepare the surface for consecration. I read it twice. Then I looked past the tablet at the city they were descending into. Solen Reach stands 1,400 meters at its tallest residential spire. The transit arches span 9 kilometers. The freight terminal where I work is not one of the larger structures. It sits on the city's southern face like a shelf bolted to a cliff, and from my platform I was looking slightly upward at the inner city skyline. Behind the spires, higher, a Tesserin-class dreadnought hung in the bright air with its ventral stabilizers holding it motionless at 4,000 meters. It was one of three visible from my position. Each one was longer than the Solhari lead vessel by a factor I could estimate with my eyes. The alien cathedral ship looked like a pleasure craft beside it. The Solhari could see them too. I know this because their formation broke. Not dramatically, not a scatter. The intervals between their ships compressed. The processional spacing tightened the way a group of people walking abreast might bunch together when they round a corner and see something unexpected. Their broadcast continued for another 90 seconds and then stopped. Earth's reply came from the Aven line, relayed through the civil channel so every platform in the reach could hear it. The voice was a woman's, measured, unhurried, reading from a text that I later learned had been drafted 4,000 years ago and updated once per century since. Solhari Processional Fleet, this is Aven Actual. Your covenant is on record. Your declared return was anticipated. The surface you designated as sacred ground is occupied and sovereign. You are contained. Do not advance. Acknowledge. There was silence on the open channel for what felt like a long time. 19 seconds, the logs later confirmed. Then a single voice, alien, speaking through the translation layer. We are the inheritors of this ground. Our covenant precedes your structures. The reply from Aven Actual did not waver. Your covenant was carved into basalt 75,000 years ago. It was recovered 11,000 years ago. It has been in continuous institutional custody since. Every element of your return, fleet composition, approach vector, processional timing, declared intent, was catalogued in the recovery analysis and has been accounted for in standing defense architecture. You are not arriving unannounced. You are arriving on schedule. I watched from the railing as the Solhari fleet held position. 41 gold-hulled temple ships hanging in the bright air over a city that dwarfed them in every dimension. The three dreadnoughts had not moved. The Aven line's orbital platforms were visible as a slow constellation above the eastern horizon, each one a weapons emplacement the size of a small town. None of it was new. None of it had been activated for this occasion. It was simply there. The way the transit arches and the freight platforms and the water treatment substations were there. Infrastructure, maintained and patient. The containment took less than an hour. No shots were fired. The Solhari were given a choice: withdraw under escort or remain and be held indefinitely. Their fleet did not have the power to contest either option, and their commander, the one who had invoked the covenant, knew it. What happened next I learned from the civil briefing that went out that evening. 7 Solhari priests were escorted by a defense cutter to a platform on the northern shelf, the same shelf where the covenant stone had been carved. The stone itself was there, housed now in a climate-controlled archive vault that had been built around it 6,000 years ago. The priests were shown the stone. Then they were shown the preparation records. 11,000 years of translated analyses, defense projections, fleet composition models, infrastructure schedules, and updated contingency orders, all flowing from that single carved declaration. The archive filled a building. The building had been maintained by a rotating staff for longer than most civilizations in the galaxy had existed. The 7 priests were put aboard a single Solhari vessel and sent home. The message they carried was not spoken. It did not need to be. The archive was the message. Every year of preparation was a sentence in it. The covenant stone, preserved and answered, was the opening line, and the city visible from the platform, the spires, the arches, the dreadnoughts in the bright sky, the orbital line, was the closing one. I finished my shift that afternoon. The cargo manifest I had been checking when the alert sounded was still on the railing where I had left it. I picked it up, completed the audit, and filed it before the end of the day. Solen Reach did not celebrate. There was no announcement of victory because there had been no battle. The drills would continue on their existing schedule. The Tesserin grid would go on listening. The Aven line would remain where it was, maintained by the same rotating crews who had maintained it before the Solhari arrived and would maintain it after. That is what readiness looks like from a freight platform. It looks like a clear morning, an alert tone, a fleet in the sky that should not have come, and a city that already knew. I think about those 7 priests sometimes. I think about what it must have been like to stand on that shelf and see the archive, to understand that your sacred promise had been heard and studied and answered with 11,000 years of quiet, unbroken, institutional patience, that the ground you declared sacred had grown past you in every way that mattered, and that it remembered you with the same steady discipline it used to maintain its water systems and its freight schedules. I think they understood. I think that is why they left without a word.